Hi, folks. This is Harold with the Paw Print Animal Rescue Podcast. Today, Sunday, March 12th, is the last day to write us a review on either iTunes or Stitcher for your chance to win our one signed copy of Rescuing Penny Jane by previous guest, Amy Sutherland. We'll announce the winner in the next few episodes. Thanks, and on to the show.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 107. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is the amazing Stacy LeBaron, host of the Community Cats podcast.
I had a waiting list of another 400 groups looking for assistance with mentoring. And that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, was because I wanted to be able to reach out to all 400 groups. I didn't want to be able to say, I can do 10 more this year.
You can listen to Stacy's podcast 3 days a week. For many years, she worked for the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. Their organization has saved the lives of literally thousands and thousands of cats. She's had some amazing guests on her podcast. Go take a listen, and we're really honored to have her on our show. If you want to learn more about Stacy and the Community Cats podcast, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/107. That's the number 107.
We started in June 21st of 2016, so we haven't even been around for a year yet. So about a year ago, so this is January of 2017. So in January of 2016, I was having a conversation with my son, and he was getting into playing the electric guitar and recording some of his own music. And I had been in the business of animal welfare for over 20 years. I'd run a cat shelter in Massachusetts for 16 of those years. And I moved to Vermont, and I was looking for sort of a second career. And he said, well, how about starting a podcast? It'd be really easy to do, Mom, as a 12-year-old, telling me what I need to do. And I thought, wow, this is a great idea. I knew so many people in the industry who were helping cats all around the country. And I had heard so many incredible stories. And the stories just stopped, at my ear. They just stopped with me. And I had met so many people, and I said, I really wish I could share these stories with others. And so I decided to start this podcast as a way of basically giving others thoughts, ideas, hopes, sharing experiences. And it just sort of grew from there, from an idea from a 12-year-old son.
It shows that even your 12-year-old can make an impact, right?
Exactly. He's like, it's easy. I can show you how to do all this stuff. So he's my technical support in a lot of areas.
Great. So from that initial spark, for better or for worse, it takes a little bit longer than a day to get started, right? So from that initial spark, how many weeks, how many months did you actually get to your first episode?
Yeah, so that was in January, and our first episode was in June, and we launched with a 5-day-a-week podcast. So I was very confident that my Rolodex was going to be big enough. I had enough friends and family in the industry that I could call upon to help do a lot of interviews. So throughout the summertime, we stayed at 5 days a week, and it's been tremendous fun. We're at about 150 episodes at this point in time. And I meet so many new people. So now I'm at the point where I've gone through my friends and family, and now I'm meeting new people. And I've had some incredible introductions. I've been able to interview Dr. Marty Becker, who's been the America's veterinarian on Good Morning America. I interviewed Hannah Shaw, who's known as the Kitten Lady. I've interviewed just such an incredible range of folks, from philanthropy to the cat canopy rescue team. They climb trees and rescue cats. It's just amazing, the different organizations that are out there, all helping cats in different ways. And it's been a great ride, and I continue to enjoy it every day.
That's awesome. If there was maybe that one episode, hey, Stacy, tell me that one episode that I need to listen to, what do you think that would be?
Well, I do love the Kitten Lady episodes. They were back in December. We had our greatest hits, and her episode, we actually did what I call a super episode, which runs over two days. And Hannah Shaw, and you can just go to the communitycatspodcast.com, and in the search bar, put in the name Hannah Shaw, and her episodes will come up, and they are really quite fantastic and really interesting. And Brianna Lovell of Alley Cat Allies, she did a very popular show celebrating National Feral Cat Day, which is October 17th. And that was a great show also. So I'd say those are sort of our two greatest hits. But it's every week. It's a real dynamic group, and it's just fun to find out. Recently we interviewed Stephen Smith from Pet Relief. So we're talking about using hemp in our older cats that may need some pain relief and that kind of thing. So really some outside of the box stuff are in our podcast too.
Yeah, that alternative medicine for animals is becoming definitely a trending topic, as they say, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just sort of what you feed your animals, how you treat your animals, what the relationship of your veterinarian is. When I spoke with Marty Becker, Dr. Marty Becker, I thought that I was going to find out, more about sort of traditional what he's done. And he's developed this whole fear-free initiative, which is basically making the visit to a veterinarian's office for a cat or dog a lot less stressful. And they have a whole protocol. He's got an advisory board of 200 different people involved in creating this fear-free initiative. And he's really excited about it. And it's just, yet another interesting topic. And I learn something new every day. And I'm hopeful that other people are learning new things every day too with these shows.
Yeah. Well, after 150 episodes, which is incredible, what did you learn about yourself?
I love meeting new people, and I am continually amazed at all the things that folks are doing all around the country. When you run your own organization, which I did for 16 years, and our organization was able to assist over 100,000 cats in that period of time in Massachusetts, you do get kind of stuck in your own little bubble. And what kicked me out of that bubble a little bit was I started running a mentoring program for organizations around the country, helping them start what are called trap, neuter, and return programs for community cats. So basically, we are trapping cats, getting them spayed or neutered, and then returning them back to their colonies. And that's new for a lot of organizations. The organization I worked with had been doing it since the early 1990s. But this is new for a lot of places around the country. So I was mentoring groups, and I've mentored up to 80 groups. And I had a waiting list of another 400 groups looking for assistance with mentoring. And that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, was because I wanted to be able to reach out to all 400 groups. I didn't want to be able to say, I can do 10 more this year, 10 more next year. I wanted to be able to do something that was scalable. But it's amazing. I mean, all of these groups have stories. All of these individuals have stories, and all of these animals have stories. And I just want to be able to provide tools for everyone out there to be able to grow their programs and assist more cats in their communities.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so now with 150 episodes under your belt, have you started thinking that maybe the thrust of the podcast would change a little bit? I mean, how has that been going on in your mind?
So at this point in time, we are looking at doing more educational activities. And we're also have created what's called an ambassador program for our podcast, so that if there are folks that are helping cats in different states, we're going to have designated Community Cats podcast ambassadors. We also are providing some online training. There's an organization, Neighborhood Cats, which has created a data tracking software that's free for groups called catstats.org. And we're doing an online training in about in early 2017, and we're sort of expanding in the educational categories. But I do want to stress that the podcast is sort of my love. I don't know, Harold, if you find it, doing these podcasts, it's a lot of fun, and I don't want to lose the funness in it all. And so I do plan on staying with doing the podcasts and continuing to meet new people. I definitely feel more comfortable with kind of going outside the box and having, some of our more unique guests on the show. And I'm like having a lot more fun. We're having contests now with our listeners. So that's a lot of fun too. In March, we'll be doing March's microchipping month, and we'll really be focusing on microchipping as a topic for the month of March.
That is super creative. So, wow, amazing stuff that you're doing through this podcast. Only really, 7 months in?
Yeah. I really like moving quickly. I guess, doing a lot. And I have a great team. I mean, it's very tough being a podcaster. Sometimes you feel like you're just sort of out there by yourself. But I do have a group of a couple of other people that are very supportive. And I hope that, you have advisors too. There are quite a few people that I've turned to just for advice and thoughts about what they might want to do, what it would look good for our podcast going forward.
Absolutely. Wow. Great advice. Great things to discuss. Let's maybe pivot to your animal rescue story. Tell us a little bit about you and the animals in your life, either growing up or recently.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I've always had a cat in my life. I grew up with a very grumpy cat named Duncan, who taught me how to appreciate grumpy cats. And so, cats have always been an important part of my life. I never would call myself a cat lady, but I guess I have to wear that label now a bit. When I moved to Massachusetts in 1992, I got to know an organization called the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. And I was very new I was in my early 20s at that point in time, and I was totally ignorant and new to rescue. And there was an organization that had just formed there. And they started a shelter. And so I thought I went with my 20-pound bag of cat litter and my 20-pound bag of cat food over to the shelter to bring it in and donate it to them, thinking this was going to last them a week and a half or whatever. And I went in there and they had just handled an 80-cat hoarding case. And so there were two very overwhelmed looking folks, but very caring, taking care of these cats as well as, and they were extremely grateful. I was so impressed at how thankful they were for what turned into what I thought was a great donation into a very small donation to help them, taking care of all these cats. And so at that point in time, I thought, wow, I think I can help out. I don't know if I would want to work in a shelter environment because I thought that might be too emotional. So I volunteered to be their secretary for the organization in 1994. The next year, 95, I became the vice president, and then 96, I became president. So I guess you have to be careful about what you volunteer for because you might get put on the fast pass up to leadership in any organization.
That's right.
But so I stayed president of that group from 1996 to 2012, and then I remained on the board of directors for several years around that time. So it spanned about 22 years that I was on their board of directors. But I provided leadership to the organization. It's the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, and you can find them at www.mrfrs, as in Sam.org. We were the first cageless shelter in Massachusetts to offer a cageless environment for cats. We are.
Okay, stop you there. Please share more about the cageless. What does that mean, and what does it look like?
So we bought in 2003. We bought a ranch house in Salisbury, Massachusetts, and we had always wanted to have an environment where cats were able to walk around, freely in a home-like environment. And so we have this sort of open living area. We have about 60 cats at the adoption center. We adopt out about 600 cats a year. And so we wanted to provide a cageless environment. We do have, when cats come into the shelter, they do go through an intake process where they are caged. We do have a sick room. We have isolation rooms. We also have a very strong adoption program for cats with feline leukemia. So we are known as a leader in New England for adopting out cats with feline leukemia. We were also the first organization to integrate cats with FIV, with negative cats. So on our adoption floor, we have cats intermingled with cats that don't have FIV, as long as they're not fighting, because FIV is only transferred through extremely deep bite wounds. So if you have a friendly FIV positive cat, that's not fighting with anybody. It's perfectly fine for them to hang out with negative cats. So we wanted to be always sort of kind of ahead of the game and trying new things. We've had a barn relocation program for feral cats that have to be relocated from a colony due to a variety of different reasons. We obviously use that as a last resort. We also launched 2 mobile spay neuter clinics. So we have 2 Catmobiles, which are like these big RVs that can spay and neuter up to 40 cats on any given day. They operate 5 days a week and handle all of Eastern Massachusetts. And so that's a lot of our volume in terms of being able to assist over 100. Actually, we're at 105,000 cats we've assisted since 1992. Yeah. So in Massachusetts, cats are kind of a short supply in shelters. It's kind of interesting. Cats and kittens, especially in this time of year in wintertime, there's room for cats. So transporting cats from other parts of the country into New England is becoming a pretty big business.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible stuff. And of course, your organization is a big part of that. So thank you.
So, well, it was a great experience, and then it's a great organization, and I learned a lot, and that's why I created the podcast, was to share. I've done all the things right. I've done all the things wrong. I've done things that I have no idea how I did them. And I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, I've learned a lot, and I just would like to continue to share my experiences with others to be able to support them in the work that they're doing.
Yeah. For folks who are out there listening who belong to an animal rescue organization of some sort, what are some of the big lessons that you learned, either successes or some of the mistakes?
So, lessons learned. I would have to say one of the biggest takeaways that I always had was always being careful to make sure that I didn't get myself too overwhelmed. And if I did, don't be afraid to ask others for help. So over the years, I became a very good delegator. A lot of people will say, well, why did you do this? And they'll say, well, Stacy asked me. If you don't ask, no one's going to do anything for you, and you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel lonely. So don't be afraid to ask. Even if you don't even know what you're asking for, don't be afraid to ask for help. I find that so many people they get themselves stuck and they're spinning, and then they just aren't productive at all. Another tip is always focus on goals and make goal setting a priority. In January, one of our giveaways was a goal setting sheet, just a quick little sheet where people can establish their goals for the year, because I find also you're so busy in the doing that you're not thinking about what you're trying to accomplish. And it's important to have those goals set. Other lessons learned was being patient with people and taking the time to really listen to what folks are trying to tell you. Our organization, the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, when I was with them, had over 300 volunteers involved, as well as about a dozen staff members. And, that's a lot of people to make sure that they're, happy, they're comfortable, they're doing what they want to be doing. But you do need to take the time to sort of take care of your family. If you take care of your family's going to take care of you. So I think that that's really important. And they can give you a lot of support. But I'd say those are the key things that I've learned over the years, and that I really would hope that other people would think about instilling. So every week I used to always have the goal of handing something off of my plate. I knew lots of people were going to put things on my plate. So I always had a goal of taking one thing, that action I was doing, and passing it on to somebody else to do.
Okay. Really good lessons there. Going to a personal, any kind of actual cats that you can think of or that you can visualize whose story just kind of touched you or was memorable to you?
Lots of stories. We had certainly lots and lots of stories. The first cat that ever came into the shelter was a really, really grumpy cat named Jaguar. And we actually have a portrait of him still painted and hanging up at the shelter. But he was an all-white cat who could hear. Sometimes all-white cats don't, but he could hear. But he only chose to hear what he wanted to hear. But he always was, a character that, and he ended up staying with us for quite a few years before he got adopted. And he ended up living to be about 20 years old before he passed away. We were founded, the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society was founded because of a cat overpopulation problem in Newburyport, Massachusetts. So we had 300 cats on the Newburyport waterfront. And we started a trap, neuter, return program there in 1992. And by 1998, the last cat we were down to quite a few cats there. And then by 2008, the last cat had passed away from that colony. So we now have no cats on the Newburyport waterfront.
Amazing.
But
amazing.
There were quite a few cats. Actually, my December 24th show with Kathy Downey profiles Mickey's story. And Mickey was one of the lead cats down on the waterfront. They all had names. We had feeders that fed them twice a day. We had these old Excel spreadsheets, with who was feeding who and who saw whom. And we had 14 different feeding stations. And then by 2008, there's no one, and the last feeding station has been removed. So for anyone who thinks that trap, neuter, return does not work, we've certainly proven that if you do it effectively, you are going to reduce or potentially eliminate the unowned cat population in an area. So lots of stories with those cats on the waterfront. I mean, they were the passion behind what we started. So we even have a Captain Courageous Fund, which is a special fund to help pay for injured feral cats. So that was started back in our early days because there was a cat called Captain who got injured. And at that point in time, our organization didn't have a lot of money. So it was sort of basically going around the room and collecting money to help pay the vet bill for him. And that's where we decided to start a special fund. So there's Captain Courageous, there's Jaguar, there's Mickey, of all these early cats that we've had. I've fostered tons and tons of cats. My weakness was always the cats that were 10 and over that got surrendered to the shelter. I always wanted to take the older guys home, and some of them got adopted and some of them ended up just staying with me.
Outside folks assume, why would you actually feed these cats? Like, isn't that a bad idea? Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of developing that feeding program?
Fix and feed are both two important components. So if you are going to feed cats, outdoor cats, which about 55 to 60% of the population do admit to feeding cats that they don't know who the owners are. So I think it's just in our nature. We like to feed squirrels. We like to feed, animals. It's somewhat in our nature to do that. If you are going to feed what we call community cats, you also need to make a commitment to get them fixed. Now, if the kitties have what's called a left ear tip, which is a little flat snip taken off the tip of their left ear, it means they've already been spayed or neutered. So then you don't have to worry about it. It means there is somebody taking care of that cat. So there probably also is a feeder somewhere else too. So at that point in time, it's probably not that important to feed that cat unless the cat appears sickly, thin, distressed, misplaced, or, really hanging out specifically in your backyard and not straying far, then it means someone's picking you to be, the designated caretaker. Because cats do wander, even owned cats, indoor, outdoor owned cats. They did a study of them with GPS things on their neck. And they can go for miles and then come back home. So, a lot of times too, you have to be careful about feeding. You don't want to feed somebody's cat that's owned because you want to make sure that cat goes back home too. So I would say before feeding, you sort of need to get to know the cat and really feel if that cat is really hanging out in your neighborhood, and see if it is ear tipped and that kind of thing. I'd also recommend reaching out to a local group to see if there is a local trap, neuter, return group. And then they would know whether that cat is affiliated with a specific colony and there's a dedicated feeder. I think we do need to be organized about how we handle our community cats. So, before just throwing food down on the ground, you might want to do a little bit of research. If the cat is super friendly, you can also put a paper collar on the cat with your phone number and say, hey, am I owned? Please call me because I'm worried about, the situation. And you can find out if that cat is owned.
Yeah. Now, what if folks in the community have a negative response to a feeding program? They basically say, wait a second, what you're doing is, obviously from a non-cat lover background, right? Folks are like, this is completely irresponsible. Why are you feeding these outdoor cats? Aren't you just propagating the problem? What would be your response?
So this is it's a humane alternative to doing a trap and euthanize scenario. So, and if you do trap and euthanize cats, there's what's called the vacuum effect, which means more cats are going to move into the area. So I always talk about trap, neuter, return as Adam and Eve. Unfortunately, we do have abandoned cats. Unfortunately, people do abandon cats. And there are a lot of programs that are developing and that are in place. Programs like Pets for Life from the Humane Society of the United States, helping people not feel like they have to abandon their animals, and to be able to enforce that so there's less abandonment. But people have abandoned their cats, and they continue to do so. So with feral cats that are not socialized, that are not able to be adopted, you can do this trap, neuter, and return. And by having an organization involved and volunteers involved, when other cats, newly abandoned cats, come into the colony, they are easily scooped up before they revert to feral or become shyer. And they can get placed easily through the adoption center. So by having this diligent group of volunteers, in most cases it's volunteers, really being the neighborhood monitors for the cats, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with fewer cats on the streets, which is the objective that we're all looking for.
Okay, well said. Thank you so much. Why do you think you do what you do?
It's a good question. It's random acts of running into cats, I guess. It's just, I got sort of started on this path, and every day I got a new and refreshing challenge and question and problem. And I'd say one of the visual takeaways that I've had that has really stayed with me forever, and what's kept me in this business, has been I went to look at a group of cats that were living behind a bar. And, I was told I need to go check it out, see what this colony is like. And I went up there, and it was a tough bar, and a big dumpster in the back that had very little trash, tons of broken beer bottles, and probably about 30 or 40 kittens in that dumpster with, runny, goopy eyes and that kind of thing. And then there were about 60 adults I could see off in the woods, sort of their eyes looking in at me and that kind of thing. And I just looked at that picture and I said, this cannot happen anywhere else ever again, if I have anything to say about this. And so that image has kind of always stayed with me. I don't want to ever see something like that again. We obviously took care of that colony, and all those kittens were brought in and they were placed. Most of them lost at least one eye. So they were very special needs.
Wow.
And, but we were bound and determined to do the best thing for those kittens, and those adult cats were trapped, neutered, and returned with a lot of effort. And, but I wanted to be able to help others be able to say, I can make a difference here. I can change the scenario. So if someone else is looking at that dumpster in Arizona, in Ohio, wherever, they're going to have the tools to be able to make a difference for that colony.
Yeah. We're speaking to the amazing Stacy LeBaron, host of the Community Cats podcast. If we wanted to check out the Community Cats podcast, where can we find you? Either the website, social media?
Sure. So we are on the website. We are www.communitycatspodcast.com. And folks can always email me, reach out to me directly at Stacy, Stacy, at communitycatspodcast.com. And we are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We're on Pinterest. And you certainly also can subscribe to the Community Cats podcast on iTunes. We are on Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. So we're easy to find.
All right. Last question. If you had a magic wand and if you could do something to change the state of animal rescue, what do you think you'd do?
My magic wand, we'd have this huge sandbox and everybody would be in it working together.
That's a big that's a pretty
they'd be
big
working.
sandbox.
The cats wouldn't be in the sandbox. It'd be all the animal welfare people playing in the sandbox together, collaboratively, happily, and trying to be efficient, using technology to make our job, our work most efficient, so we would be able to communicate well. Our information, our data would be collected in a way so that it would all be very helpful. I think that we're getting there. I think we are working very well together, but I do think that in many areas there's quite a few divides. And it's one of the things that I strive for. I really enjoy working with new people and seeing perspectives. And, in the cat world, there's bird lovers who are concerned about community cats. And, I'd really like to see those folks all getting together and playing in the sandbox and trying to figure out solutions. So I guess I would say, that would be the case. And then the magic wand solution. So I'm going to say a second one here is the magic wand solution of making sure that there are options for anyone who does need to surrender a cat or a dog, that those options are available to them and that they're not forced to abandon a pet.
We want to say thank you to Stacy LeBaron for sharing her story. We also want to say thanks to Mark Dillon, previous guest, for connecting us with Stacy. If you want to learn more about Stacy and the Community Cats podcast, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/107. If you'd like to meet me or Nancy on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, look for our handle, which is simply This Is Paw Print, all one word. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on your favorite podcast app like iTunes, SoundCloud, or iHeartRadio. Search for Paw Print Animal Rescue and hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. We want to say thank you to all of you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. We couldn't have done it without you. So thank you. And remember, you share a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.